We're resuming recording. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone and the time in which you're regurgitating this. My name's Eric Hatch out of Fargo, North Dakota. I am the CEO and owner of Hatch Realty and Hatch Coaching and 23 other businesses as well. Lucky number 25 is where we find ourselves today. I'm a serial entrepreneur whose favorite cereal is Cracklin' Oat Bran. Have you had Cracklin' Oat Bran before? It's actually wonderful. I digress. We are spending some serious time today talking about being a CEO. And I'll share this with you as CEO of a number of companies. This is a really hard job. There is nothing more difficult than being at the top. And I know that everybody who's not at the top complains like that schmuck. They get all the money and they have the easiest life. And this is a really misunderstood position. I'll tell you that. Those that dare to take on a CEO or a lead manager position put themselves really in the crossfires quite a bit. And so we're going to talk about how to do this and how to do this exceedingly well. But I want you to understand maybe a little bit of what I can bring to the table. Some of you have maybe watched a whole lot of my stuff before. Some of you may be brand new to it. And yet here we find ourselves, and I'm so excited to share with you what's happening in our worlds. I am, as I said, the CEO and owner of Hatch Realty. We have 4 offices in North Dakota and Minnesota. We'll sell around 700 to 800 homes this year, and we're doing so with a really superb team. We're one of the top 50 real estate teams in the country and have been the #1 real estate team in North Dakota since 2012. 4 years ago, we started a company called Hatch Coaching, and Hatch Coaching has been passionate about redefining how people treat people. We get our greatest joy from shaping the real estate industry and other businesses as well to make sure that we are leading our teams appropriately, that we're influencing our customers and clients appropriately, and that we're doing the best good that we can in this world. So with that, we have been putting out a whole bunch of webinars, and we're going to continue to do so because we just love sharing our passions with people. There's no sales pitches, there's no gimmicks. We will point you to some things that we think could be great tools in your toolbox, and yet this is not a sales pitch. In fact, if so, feel free to pitch slap me. I want to just provide a lot of great value, and hopefully you can walk away feeling like we helped rise the tide in your world just a little bit. So please, as we're going, if you have questions, if you have conversation that you want, I want to answer everything I possibly can. So put them in the chat box there, and I will awkwardly try to maneuver between all my screens to get this to go. So with that, I want to say first and foremost, thanks for joining. And I want you to know that being a CEO is way tough. It is one of the hardest jobs that you can ever have. It is frankly a thankless position. Crap rolls uphill. We usually get all of the blame and none of the credit. We are consistently misunderstood. And those are all okay. What you need to know and what you need to understand, and I'm going to be sharing my screen here and bouncing back and forth just a little bit. What I'm going to be doing here is I want to paint a really great picture, if I may, about what it takes to be super, oh, wrong button, shame on me. I want to present, that's the button that I want. Okay, I want to share with you what I think is the right format and the right structure to do this. Is we have to understand that being a CEO or being a manager is not a reward. In fact, there's a great book that's written on this. It's his most recent book by a guy named Patrick Lencioni. He wrote books like The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and gave some really awesome insight in those last 10 or so books that he wrote about how to be a great leader. In this book, his most recent book called The Motive, he writes about why you'd want to be a great leader, why you'd want to be a CEO. And he tells this narrative of how this person was CEO and then they griped about their job and they complained about the things that they had to do. And they came down to that person got to be CEO or they got to be the lead manager because they earned it from production or time vested in the company. It's actually a really irresponsible way to grow your ecosystem, is if you are saying, well, I earned the right to be a CEO. Like, being a CEO is not a sexy job if you don't love the things that are involved with being a CEO. I'm going to show you in this time together what it really takes to be a great CEO and the value that we get to give and the value that we get to get in this. We're going to go through my 11 things you should embrace as a CEO and a leader. So if you're taking notes, please write these down. If you have questions, again, pop them in the chat box and we'll make this a conversation and not just a presentation. The primary tasks of a CEO, again, there's 11. Number 1 is to cast a clear vision and repeat it often. In Lencioni's book, The Motive, he says, actually, our job is to not be a CEO, but rather be a CRO, a Chief Repeating Officer. We have to say something at least 7 times for people to even start to think and understand that we're remotely serious about it. I think that's a shocking statistic, is that we have to say things at least 7 times for people to be like, okay, this is actually going to happen. What a lot of us do is we do what's called the plop and drop. The plop and drop is we have a great idea, we bring it to our team, we talk about it for a brief moment, and then we drop it on them, expecting them to clean it up, to figure it out, and to unpack it and unroll it so that it looks just perfect for us. That is as stupid as it sounds. I can't be the only one that's done the plop and drop far too many times. If you've done the plop and drop quite a bit, just please type in the chat box, that's me. Because what happens is we drop these ideas on people and we fail to cast a really broad vision for people. We fail to give them a very clear direction to where we're going, and we fail to talk about our vision consistently. What we're looking at here is we need to simplify our vision. We have to say it often and we have to write it down. We at Hatch Realty have in our training room our vision, and our vision is to create champions. It's a very simple, clear way to write it down. Our vision is to create champions. And what we want to do with that is we've given 4 key areas to really simplify this. The first thing we want to do is we want to help people to build businesses and runways. It's not about us building a great business for us. It's about building a great business for that person that's on our team. Whether it be here or we go and grow a big ecosystem, we want people to live in abundance. The second piece is that we want to build servant leaders. We believe that servant leadership is the way, it's the key that unlocks everything. And so when we can choose to serve at an exceedingly high level and serve our people, we know that the chance for them to become champions is that much easier. The third is we multiply. We multiply our generosity, our goodness, our passions, and we know that this is a time in which we can massively accelerate our growth by multiplication. And the fourth is to be number 1. We want everybody in our world to strive to be number 1, not to be better than other people, but instead to be our best selves. And we have a very clear vision, and every decision I make falls under that vision. I can articulate it, I can show where it shows up, because people will see all these different ideas that we throw out all the time. If it's in line with our vision, it is much easier for them to implement. Again, if it's in line with our vision, it's much easier for them to implement. And I want you to see this here at the bottom of the screen. It says this, finally, is that your whisper is a shout. Yes, we have to repeat things 7 times at minimum for them to be heard and understood, but also understand that our words have power. And if we're going to embrace being a great CEO or leader, we have to understand that everything we say has weight to it. And so choose your words carefully. The second task of being a great CEO or leader is this. Oh, I'm going too fast there. Is lead the leaders. Please write that down. Lead the leaders. Your job is not to create other followers. Instead, a CEO or a leader's job is to create other leaders. It's a different energy, isn't it? It's not about telling people what to do. It's about helping people to discover what's the best method. And it's slow. By the way, one of my favorite quotes is this, is that leadership is slow, but management is fast. We manage projects, we lead people. And that means if you're going to lead the leaders, there's a couple things to pull away from this. The first is you shan't not have too many people within your care. Shan't not. Is that even a word? Shan't? It's going to be a word now. You shouldn't have too many people in your care. Jesus had 12 and y'all ain't Jesus. I recommend no more than 5 or 6 people in your direct care. Anything beyond that is a trifle of irresponsible. You will not have a chance to have an effective ecosystem unless you scale your leadership accordingly. If you're a small organization, 2 or 3 or 4, maybe everybody is treated as a leader. But as you scale, you have to pay very close attention to how you're building your business. One of the things when this is done is I want you to Google the rule of 3s and 10s. It works like this: is when a business grows from 1 person to 3 people, it has to reinvent itself. It has to find a new way to operate. When it grows from 3 to 10, and there's not exactness with that number, it may be 11 or 9, but when it grows from 3 to 10 people, it again has to reinvent itself. If you've grown from 3 people to 10 people, you can't have everybody in your direct care anymore. And your primary job is not to be everything to everyone, and instead it's to lead the leaders. I'm in deep right now with some people on my team. We have a situation at Hatch Realty that has created some bigger waves than we ever expected. And I got asked earlier today by one of my key leaders, hey, would you come in and kind of help fix this? And I'm like, no, like, and could I? Yeah, I think I'd probably do a pretty good job. Should I? No. My job is to lead the leaders. My job is to pour into those that are pouring into other people because they have proximity and I don't. If I go in and grab the steering wheel, they're never going to be a good driver. And I have to watch them suffer. I have to watch them struggle. And then guess what? I still get all the blame, y'all. Like, it's not always the coolest place and space to be in. And yet I love it because I know that in a year or 2, these leaders that I'm developing are going to have the ability to stand on their own. When you're a parent and you're watching your kid learn how to walk, I remember when my daughter Finley was learning to walk, and she would play on our bed and she would crawl, and eventually she'd get to the edge, and we would pull her back and pull her back and pull her back. And there comes a time when you have to let your kid walk off the bed. Now, we don't want them to get hurt. We feel like terrible parents when we see this happen in our world. And yet we as CEOs and as leaders have to oftentimes watch our people walk to the edge. And eventually we got to let them fall so they understand that they can't do that anymore. It's complicated. It's tough. And yet it is so fulfilling if you can stick with it and lead your leaders. Now, in the rule of threes and 10s, when you grow to 30 or 100 or 300 or 1,000, that again is a reinvention of your business. And I challenge you right now to take a look at the numbers in your ecosystem to see if you have scaled proportionately so that you have the capacity to lead your leaders. If not, it's not too late to start shaping that and getting a little bit forward. The number 3 primary task of a CEO and leader is to master the art of zooming in and zooming out. Write that down. Master the art of zooming in and zooming out. As I best articulate that, I just love the word proximity. It's such a powerful word, and frankly, there's power in proximity. Allow me to articulate for you. My job as a CEO is I have to have a 10,000-foot view of seeing everything that's happening in the ecosystem. I have to be paying attention to COVID. I have to be paying attention to market stats. I have to be at least 12 months ahead on vision casting and at least 6 months ahead on hiring. I have to be making all these large decisions for the whole in order to see the sum of the parts. I have to live with a very different view of the business than being in the business. And some of us are struggling because we're just in the business and we don't spend enough time zooming out to see it all. Now, on the flip side of that is sometimes we spend so much time in our business connecting to the heartbeat, connecting to see the whites of the eyes of people. And when we're doing that, that's a great place to be. And we shouldn't make decisions back here without zooming in up here. You see a lot of forehead when I do that. You shouldn't be making decisions up here without seeing decisions back here. The dance of zooming in and zooming out as a CEO or a leader is a really important dance. You have to be able to almost simultaneously understand how it impacts the whole and the individual. We can't make decisions without one or the other. And frankly, because your primary task on number 2 is to lead the leaders, you need to have an understanding of the heartbeat of your organization. I work at Hatch Realty 12 to 16 hours a week. It's a part-time CEO job. And understand what has to happen is when I am there, I'm making decisions back here and not up here. Yet it is irresponsible of me if I don't spend my time understanding what's happening because my leaders are connected to the people. And for you right now, are you making decisions because you're too close? Are you making decisions because you're too far away? Or are you dancing back and forth? All right. Moving on. Hey, you're still with us. That's a big win. We're going on to number 4, to do the hard things. Oh, a CEO and a leader has to love doing the hard things. Having difficult conversations, making challenging decisions, those are 2 very big, important tasks of a CEO and a leader. Now, please understand, I'm not saying that it's your job to jerk the steering wheel back from someone. You serve oftentimes as an advisor and a coach more than the decision maker. If you're the only decision maker, you probably don't have enough other leaders in your world, or you're not trusting your people enough. And instead, doing the hard things means that you have to let the buck stop with you. And if it comes to it, like you're the Supreme Court, you know what I mean? Like if you're the Supreme Court of your business, you're not making the decision unless it comes to you, because it starts at a granular level. And if that can't be figured out, then it goes up and up and up and up. And you're only there to make those decisions that can't be figured out on their own. But the buck does stop with you. You have to be willing and able to make tough decisions after zooming in and zooming out in order to make the right move for you and your company. And yet it's tricky, isn't it? Like if you know anything about the DISC profile, a regular thing that I use in real estate is I'm a high D, which means I'm a dominant personality, but I'm also a high I. I'm a 99I, which means I love influence and I love being social and I don't like letting people down. And so this has been a tough one for me. Having difficult conversations hasn't been tough. Making challenging decisions has been. Our job, if we're going to embrace being a CEO or a manager or leader, is that we have to be comfortable with this. And in fact, we have to love it. That seems weird, doesn't it? Is that we have to love making difficult decisions. But the reason why that's such a sweet spot is because we know what's going to happen in 6 months when we make the tough decision today. We know that when we have challenging, difficult conversations in our world, although it's pain today, it's growth tomorrow. Frankly, your job as a CEO is to be a farmer. You take all the manure of your world and you spread it out and you work with it instead of letting it sit and fester. You turn it into fertilizer, hoping, praying, wanting, wishing, and then acting upon that growth. See, when manure is used in the right way, it is a powerful tool. And when the crap that happens in your world happens, and it will continue to, it can be a powerful tool if you actually use it in the right sort of way. Bet you didn't think we'd be talking about manure, but yet here we are. Number 5, primary tasks of a CEO or a leader is to be vulnerable. Great leaders give all the credit and take all the blame. This word vulnerable is powerful. And if you want any great research on it, please do some work with Brene Brown. Her podcast, her videos, her Netflix special, her books. She is queen of vulnerability and one of my idols and role models. Being vulnerable is powerful. And I want to share with you, I made mention a few minutes ago that we're in this like situation at Hatch Realty right now, where we have some frustrated team members and they're questioning and second guessing, and their leader, frankly, messed up and fell short. Could have done some things better. Now, I'm his leader, so it's on me as well. That blood is on my hands too. And right before this call, I had him on the line and he was in tears, just so hurt that he could have done better and that he messed up. The moment he showed me vulnerability was the moment that I stopped being mad. The moment that he owned his shortcomings was the moment that I met him with grace and understanding. I know those that he has the privilege of leading will do the same because it's the character of the people in our organization. There is power in vulnerability and admitting your mistakes. There's power in giving credit, and there's power in taking blame. People are drawn towards that instead of repulsed away from it. See, being a CEO means that you have to consistently appear pretty much naked in front of your people, seeing all your flaws, all your shortcomings, all your mistakes. If you're going to do it exceedingly well, they need to see and understand how much you suck. And that's why they're going to stay with you. It's not because you're acting as though you're perfect, but instead you're consistently showing that you are a work in progress. If you don't believe me, here's the good news is I went ahead and I did a little bit of research here. I'm bouncing around, click the wrong button. I did a little bit of research on how I can help you understand on a really high level some of the benefits of transparency. Number one, problems are solved faster. When people don't hide behind a facade or act like their crap doesn't stink, sure enough, problems are solved faster. Teams are also built easier. Relationships grow authentically. I love number 4. People begin to promote trust in their leader. And finally, number 5 is that high levels of performance emerge. You will get your best out of people when you show them your worst. Please write that down. You will get your best out of your people when you show them your worst. It is one of the keys to unlock a massive amount of success is that you have to be the first one to admit your faults and your shortcomings and your failures. If you don't do that, oh my gosh, you are in for some trouble here. In our world, we boast an 80 or 90% retention rate, just depends on the year, for our little team of 35 to 40 people. Getting to a place where we have consistent people that stay, well, I can tell you that they go and make more money elsewhere. If they went on their own, I mean, they'd have more responsibility, but they could have a chance to make more money, and they choose to stay because of what our ecosystem does for them. And that ecosystem says, we're going to help you get better because that's what we're doing as well as a company is we're trying to figure out how to get better every day. Okay, gang, we're going to keep moving on here. Let's see, there I went too fast. Number 6, master CAP leadership, CAP, CAP leadership. It is standing for coaching, appreciation, and progression. Being a CEO or a leader means that we get to put on that cap every day. Our job is to coach the people in our world. One of the mistakes that most of you, just like I've made, have been doing is that we think that teaching and coaching are the same thing. They're actually anything but. I could sit back and I could watch Tiger Woods play golf, and he could tell me, here's how you hold your club, here's where your head goes, here's how your feet are placed, here's how you swing, here's how you follow through, here's how you keep your head down, and everything else. And Tiger Woods could teach me how to play golf. In fact, I'm a big fan of TikTok right now. When my 3-year-old goes to sleep, we watch TikTok because it moves fast enough for him to actually stay in bed. And there's a golf guy that I've been following on TikTok, and he's teaching me all the time. Now, I went to the driving range a couple days ago when it opened up in Fargo, and my golf swing still was just as crappy as it was before because teaching somebody doesn't help them grow. Coaching somebody does. And if Tiger Woods came to me and he coached me for a day and he adjusted these things and every one of my swings was customized to me, not to him, but customized to me, I can promise you that I would improve as a golfer. See, most of us move so fast that we teach and we don't coach. And it's our job as CEOs and as leaders to coach people. That means every swing, every adjustment, every time we watch them. In fact, a training process works best in 3 steps. It's first, watch me. If I'm going to show you what I'm doing, you're going to shadow and you're going to watch me. That's like me watching Tiger Woods golf. But the second piece is watch you. But most people do is they skip to go and do the third step. They say, okay, Tiger Woods will say, watch me golf. You got it? Okay, now go golf. And it doesn't work that way. It's watch me, watch you, where Tiger is now watching me, and he's adjusting my swing and helping me to get better. And he is saying the hard things that I sometimes don't want to hear in the moment, but I'm so grateful for in the long term. That's what coaching is, and coaching is constant. It is not an annual review. It is not a bi-weekly meeting. It is a constant. A great CEO or a leader is constantly coaching. That's the C in CAP leadership. The A is appreciation. Our job, whether we have proximity and connectedness with our people or not, is to consistently showing appreciation and gratitude. And yet, it's not a one size fits all. If you understand the love languages, you know and understand that having specificity is the way to make somebody really feel appreciated. We have trading cards that we've developed at Hatch Realty where we know every single person's love language, as well as their DISC score and their values and their Myers-Briggs and their Strengths Finder and everything else. But these trading cards will tell us, listen, Barbara is not a words of affirmation person. Instead, she's a quality time person. So if I'm going to show appreciation for Barbara, I have to go and spend quality time with her without my phone, without interruptions, and just letting her know that I care about her. And that can't be scheduled. It needs to be sporadic. Otherwise, it just feels like routinization and like I have to. See, our job as CEOs is to know our team so exceedingly well that we are consistently mirroring and matching them, and they are not mirroring and matching us. We have a pretty crummy world if our world looks everything like us, and instead we should be colorful and spend the time to figure out what everybody needs. So the C is coaching, the A is appreciation, and the P is progression. It's growth. Our job as great CEOs and leaders is to consistently talk about progression. We acknowledge goodness when we see it, and we have to point out regression when it shows up. If there's one takeaway that you have from today, I hope it's this keyword of progression. The reason why is, as surveys have shown throughout the history of time, whether it be in life or in business, the number one thing that leads to satisfaction is not money, it's not accolades, it's not titles, it's not anything else. It instead is the feeling of progression. That somebody has grown and that they can see where they were and that they've gone to this next better place. As we record this, we're in the midst of COVID, and it feels like regression and it feels like stagnicity is here right now. What will feel incredible is progression, that we grow and that we develop. And so personal development and those kind of habits matter a lot, not just amidst COVID, but amidst our businesses altogether. And our job as great leaders is to talk consistently about how we're progressing or regressing. Moving on here, we are getting through this with nice speed and diligence. Number 7, the primary tasks of a CEO or a leader is to refine the art of self-discovery. I love self-discovery. My job as a coach is actually not to say great things. I have sometimes a churn when it comes to coaching clients. Those that churn are those that come to me and they want to copy everything that I've done. They want to take my playbook and rip it off. But the thing is that they have different players and they're a different coach. And it doesn't work that way. What does work as a really effective coach is I spend my time with my clients asking great questions, helping them to self-discover what it's supposed to be, because I could tell them, hey, you need to fire Brendan tomorrow. Brendan sucks. He's not bringing any value to the table. You need to fire him tomorrow. But don't they need to come to that conclusion on their own? Don't they need to be able to see, based on how Brendan is performing, based on the energy that he's bringing, based on the amount of time we spent investing in him, based on the performance improvement plan, now I don't think I can keep him in my world any longer. I need to let Brendan go. See, that's the point of being a great CEO and leader, is helping other people to self-discover instead of you just telling them what to do. This again takes time. It is an art, it's not a science. And yet the benefits that come from the mastery of self-discovery means that you are helping people to be great leaders in their world. Have them figure it out and hold their hand until they get it. By the way, hand holding is exhausting. It's frustrating. It is demoralizing sometimes. But if they're ever going to learn to soar, you have to be willing to take that time in the beginning. Number 8, the primary task of a CEO or leader is to be a wow leader instead of a how leader. I stole this from Andy Stanley, a wickedly smart dude. He says that the world has enough critics and our job is to be a wow leader instead of a how leader. See, our teams hopefully are bright people, and they're coming to us with passions and ideas that they want to share and uplift and communicate with. And they have all this energy that they're bringing. I go back to 2010. I was a part-time realtor. I was full-time in the ministry, but I was part-time in real estate, and I was working on a team as a buyer agent. And as I was serving in real estate, I started to sell more than all the full-time agents did. And I was bringing a lot of business in from my own personal sphere, and I was bringing in a lot of listings as well. And so I went to the owners of the company, and I said to them, hey, I'd love to get a higher commission split, or I'd love to find a way to work listings or both. How can we make that happen? And their response to me was, no, that's just not how we're built. No, I don't have that place for you. No, that's not in our standard operating procedures. And when I heard no, I was gone 45 days later. I didn't stick around because I didn't have a place that allowed me to grow. We as CEOs and leaders have to create an ecosystem so big that people can't ever imagine leaving it, that we're giving so much opportunity. If somebody came to me and said, Eric, I want to make 100% on my commissions, I wouldn't say no. I would say yes, when. See, what we're doing is we're building out those runways. Remember, I shared with you that part of our vision and creating champions is we're building runways. And when somebody wants something that is outside of what we're currently built at, I want to be able to say yes, when. And we grow a world that is so robust and so filled with awesomeness that we can't help but have our tide rise because we're building other things for other people. We're building with them, not just for them. Make sure you're clear on that language, that we don't just build things for people, we build it with them. So when somebody comes to you and they say, can I have more hours? Can I have more money? Can I have a new title? Can I do something that's outside of my typical realm? Don't say no. Say yes when. Live in the wow. Hey, that's an awesome idea. Danny, if you have somebody, my friend Danny runs an awesome yoga business. And if she has somebody that says, you know what, I want to make $100 an hour. You don't have to say no to them. You say, yeah, wow, that's an awesome idea. When we can figure out how to do this together, now it's mutual. Now they're owning that decision with you. They're curating the way to get there. Be a wow leader instead of the how leader, because I promise you, 90% of their ideas won't go anywhere. If they do go somewhere, you've now created a world that's even bigger than what you had previously. Just meet those new ideas that people bring with, wow. It feels so much better than just, well, how are we going to do that? I love living in the wow. Number 9, and primary tasks of being a CEO or a leader is to learn to love and learn to run great meetings. Meetings can tend to suck. If they suck for you as a CEO or a leader, they certainly suck for those who are in your world and having to sit through that pain. The reason why so many memes exist about bad meetings is because there's bad managers, leaders, and CEOs behind those meetings. How can you make meetings so energetic, so powerful, so valuable that people look forward to those meetings instead of look to resent them? Now, I'll tell you with full transparency is I have not mastered this by any way, shape, or form. And yet we're getting a little bit closer every day to doing great meetings. I'm talking meetings for your whole company and great one-on-one meetings. Now, I'll give you my toolbox for what I do in a one-on-one meeting, because I think that is pretty dialed in, because it's not about what you'd think. The first thing I do in a one-on-one meeting, number one, is we talk about pleasantries and we talk about relationships and life. Sometimes we don't get past that. Because if somebody has chaos going on in their world, let's say they're fighting with their spouse or their kid is struggling in school or they're lonely or depressed, doesn't make sense to talk about anything else. That's you can't get past the triage station if you still have those symptoms. You can't reach your goal if you're underwater. And our job first is to be in that relationship and to connect with people. Then we move to triage. Excuse me, no. Number two is we move to homework. Any great one-on-one and any great meeting gives challenges of something that people are going to work on. It's a call to action. And in your world and ecosystem, I hope and pray that you're giving calls to action every time you have a meeting. So you check that homework, and if that homework hasn't been done, well, there needs to be conversations about why that wasn't done. Number three, triage. Where are they struggling in their business? See, number one is about relationships, and we don't go to business until we can handle those relationships first. Number two is homework for what they were to work on, but number three is triage for their business. Because you can't work towards their goals until you know that they are above water and aren't getting drowned by a client or a relationship that is connected with their current business. The fourth piece, now that you find yourself here, is you're diving into their goals. Not the company standard, not about your business acumen or what it is you're desiring, but instead it's about those specific goals of that specific person. What are they doing to get there? Where have those goals shifted? Are they doing everything they can and helping them to, are they checking every box that they need to so that that goal becomes an actuality? There's a great book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, 4DX for short. And in this book, it talks about lead measures and lag measures. Oftentimes the lag measure is I want to make X amount this year, or I want to have this many clients or sell this many houses or whatever it may be. And what we fail to do is we fail to unpack that to figure out how many things do you have to be doing every day in order to reach this. See, if you talk about this and it becomes unattainable, you lose people. But if you spend your time saying, why aren't you doing this every day? You're going to get some real momentum going. Then the fifth and final is to give challenges and or homework every single time. Again, a great one-on-one has great homework attached to it, and any great meeting should have a call to action as a part of it. Almost through, folks. Thanks for sticking with me. Number 10, primary tasks of being a CEO or a leader is to play for the person next to you. Oh, it's the name of my book. Look at me doing a little bit of ad placement here for my book. Don't I look so handsome? This book, Play for the Person Next to You, is a guide to servant leadership. And it is one of my favorite ways to tell the story of why servant leadership matters so much. See, playing for the person next to us, it's really hard to do. It's, in fact, really hard to understand. The first time I heard it, I heard some college football players talking about how they play for the person next to them and how it was regular language in their world. And it didn't really conceptualize for me until I did this exercise. I challenged a group of people during a speaking event. I challenged them to, I asked for 4 volunteers. And as they came up, I told them, okay, here's the parameters. I'm going to ask you each, the goal is to do a 3-minute plank. I'm going to ask each of you to try to reach the goal of doing a 3-minute plank. That's on your elbows and on your toes in like a push-up position. Now, your goal is to get to 3 minutes. Everybody who's watching, you can't talk, you can't cheer on, you just have to watch and observe. This is for myself and the 4 people planking. By the way, I did a plank last week for 3 minutes for the first time, and that's friggin' hard. I am a jerk when I do that, especially for people in public, because my daughter came up to me and started talking to me at like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And I was like, leave me alone. But I digress. Okay, so in this, we start off and I'm like, hey, you're at 30 seconds. They're like, yep, I'm getting by. And then as a minute and a minute 30 come up, they'll start saying, you know, I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. I'm not sure I can do it. And sometimes people will drop out. And then as we get there, you can see them start to shake and you can see them visibly start to feel some pain with panting and exhaustion. Sometimes they make it to 3 minutes and sometimes they don't. But when we hit 3 minutes, I go, congrats, you hit 3 minutes. And almost every time, everybody stops. And then we digest this for like 10 or 15 minutes. The first thing I say is, the goal was to get to 3 minutes. Why did you stop at the goal? And you watch this light bulb go off in their head like, oh yeah, hey, maybe I shouldn't have just dropped out right away. I had more to give. But that's not the point of this exercise. The first time I ever did this, somebody taught me this is about pushing through your goals. But as I unpacked it and unraveled it, I'm like, there's more to this. This idea to play for the person next to you really shows up here, because I said to those that were in the plank position, you were really struggling, weren't you? And someone would be like, yeah, that was tough. And I say, okay. And then the next person was like, no, that was fairly easy. But either way, they weren't talking to each other. They weren't encouraging each other. It's not our natural sense to lift up other people when we're struggling. It's not our natural sense to lift up other people when we're doing well. But there's something magical that happens when you play for the person next to you. See, if you're in pain, when you take that pain and you focus it on cheering on somebody else, your pain intrinsically goes away, or at least dissipates. When you are in gain and you're doing well and you cheer somebody else on, you get to share in their success when you yourself are successful. A great CEO or leader has the capacity to play for the person next to them and to lift them up and to give them so many opportunities to do better, because you are sharing your energy with them. I promise you this, you will go farther and higher and to undiscovered places when you can learn this servant leadership tactic of playing for the person next to you. I said there's 11 tips that I'm giving you today, and here's the top 11. Wouldn't you know, we went through 10. The reason why number 11 is not here is because you have to allow yourself to fail. You have to be okay publicly not having it all together. You have to be okay naming the shortcomings. And here it was, I said there'd be 11 and there's only 10. You have to be comfortable with not having this. If you were to screenshot something or take a quick picture, this is summarizing where it is that we went today. I want to open this up for questions from the group. I want to see what scathing rebuttals you may have, or what affirmations you may be feeling, or where it is that you're saying, you know what, I need to learn more about this. I want to point you to a couple of resources as we start welcoming in some questions. The first is go to hatchcoaching.com. What we're doing is we're providing a plethora of resources there, especially in our marketplace. Some things cost, some things are for free, but we are covering a lot of this stuff in a deeper sort of way with our materials to train, to get better, to enhance your game as a CEO or a leader. You can also access my book there, which I hope is a great guide that many people have used now to grow their servant leadership lid. And then I have a podcast called Hatching Leaders. If you go to hatchingleaders.com, you can sign up for the podcast on any of your favorite sites. But those are the places I want to point you to. And by the way, if you do purchase anything in our marketplace, we're going to be giving you a 15% discount. So when the email comes out with this, we're going to give you 15% off if you want to purchase any of that stuff. So Manny, thanks for saying that you need so much help. That is honest, that is true, and you are not alone. Our job every day is to not take this list of 11 things and to master it, is to get a little bit better on one or two of them each day. The way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. The way you climb a mountain is one step at a time. And the way you get better as a leader is one step at a time. And yes, leadership is often 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And you have to get used to that dance of failing and allow yourself to fail. Be okay with failure. So with that, Katie Jo has a great question. She's the executive assistant to the CEO. Do I have any top tips for those that are supporting the CEO in regards to these things? Yeah, I do. I have a personal assistant. Her name's Jess, and I sometimes feel like she's my only cheerleader. She sees the best of me and the worst of me because her office is right outside of mine. She looks through the window at me all the time and sees when I'm in some tough conversations or when the weight of this role has gotten me down. And she sits there wondering what to do. And I promise you, I am too proud to ask for help. So what she does is she shows up with consistent affirmation, knowing my love languages. She shows up having done the little things that are showing up on my calendar, that she can lighten my load just a little bit. And she reminds me that I am valued. It's really lonely at the top. It is a hard place to be. And yet, it is the best place to be if you learn to love these things. I'm going to pause for just a couple more seconds. Any other questions that we can help answer? Again, I want to point you to hatchingleaders.com for our podcast, hatchcoaching.com. Check out our marketplace. We're going to give you 15% off of everything in there with a code we'll send out to you. And then anything that we can do to rise the tide in your world. Man, I'm so on fire of trying to make a difference wherever I can, however I can. And if this helps you in any sort of way, here's my ask, here's my request, here's my selfish, here's how you can be great for Eric. Share publicly if this was important to you or good for you. Share it in places that I can help influence some other people. Tag me, tag Hatch Coaching, let the world know that we're up to some good. If this wasn't good for you, if we fell short, if we had a misstep or two, please tell me privately. I want to be the most coachable person in my world and in my ecosystem. And the only way I can do that is if I get feedback from you on ways in which we can get better. Esley, thanks very much. Man, by the way, I got to watch this guy play college football at NDSU for 4 years. It's where I heard play for the person next to you for the first time was from you and your teammates. And what a cool thing that you're doing now. I know you're in Minneapolis, and just proud of the good that you're doing in the world. Brendan, my pleasure. Thanks for the encouragement. And I love that you're out coaching too, because you are a difference maker, my friend. We're going to wrap here because I don't see any other questions. God bless you. Take some action, do some good, tell other people if we were awesome, and have a beautiful day.